You are standing at a crossroads right now. Every single day you wake up with a choice. You can continue living the same way you always have, or you can begin to shed the layers that have been keeping you small, keeping you stuck, keeping you from becoming the magnificent being you were meant to be. The spiritually awakened person understands something that most people never grasp. They understand that growth isn't about adding more to their lives. It's about taking away what doesn't serve them. It's about releasing, letting go, and creating space for the miraculous to enter. Today I want to share with you 7 things that every person on the path of spiritual awakening must slowly, gently, but surely release from their life. These aren't things you can eliminate overnight. They've been with you for years, maybe decades. They've become comfortable habits, familiar patterns, old friends that have overstayed their welcome. But here's what I know to be true. When you begin to let go of these 7 things, your life will transform in ways that will astound you. You'll find peace where there once was chaos. You'll find love where there once was fear. You'll find your true self where there once was only the mask you thought you had to wear. The first thing that spiritually awake people slowly quit is the need to be right all the time. Think about this for a moment. How much energy do you spend every day trying to prove that you're right? How many arguments do you get into? How many relationships do you strain because you simply cannot let someone else have their opinion without correcting them, without showing them where they're wrong? The need to be right is really the ego talking. It's that voice inside your head that says, if I'm not right, then I'm worthless. If I don't win this argument, then I'm less than. But what if I told you that being right isn't nearly as important as being happy? What if I told you that being right isn't nearly as valuable as being at peace? When you release the need to be right, something beautiful happens. You stop seeing other people as opponents and start seeing them as fellow travelers on this path called life. You stop needing to defend every little thing and start listening, really listening. And when you listen, you learn. When you listen, you grow. When you listen, you connect with others in a way that transforms both of you. I'm not saying you should become a doormat or that you should never stand up for what you believe in. What I'm saying is that you can choose your battles wisely. You can ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth damaging this relationship? Is this worth the stress I'm creating in my body and my mind? Most of the time the answer will be no. Most of the time you'll realize that being happy is so much more important than being right. And when you make that choice consistently, when you choose peace over being right, you'll find that your relationships improve dramatically. People will want to be around you because you're not constantly trying to correct them or prove them wrong. The second thing that spiritually awakened people slowly release is the addiction to approval from others. This is a big one, and it's something that most of us struggle with our entire lives. From the time we're children, we're taught to seek approval. We want our parents to approve of us. But here's the problem with living your life seeking approval from others. You're giving away your power. You're allowing other people to determine your worth. You're living your life according to what you think they want, instead of what you know is right for you. The truth is, you can never get enough approval to fill the hole inside you that craves it. There will always be someone who doesn't approve of your choices, your appearance, your beliefs, your lifestyle. If you're living for their approval, you'll spend your entire life chasing something that's constantly moving, constantly changing, constantly out of reach. When you begin to release the need for approval, you start living from your authentic self. You start making decisions based on what feels right to you, not what you think will make others happy. You start wearing what you want to wear, saying what you want to say, doing what you want to do, not because you're rebelling, but because you're finally being true to yourself. This doesn't mean you become selfish or inconsiderate. It means you stop betraying yourself to please others. It means you stop saying yes when you mean no. It means you stop pretending to be someone you're not just to fit in. The people who truly love you will love you for who you really are, not for who you pretend to be. The people who only love you when you're seeking their approval aren't really loving you at all. They're loving the version of you that makes them comfortable. So when you release the need for approval, you give others permission to do the same. You become a model for authentic living. You show others that it's possible to be yourself and still be loved, still be respected, still be valued. The third thing that spiritually conscious people slowly let go of is the habit of complaining. Complaining has become so normal in our society that we don't even realize we're doing it half the time. We complain about the weather, the traffic, the government, our jobs, our families, our health, our finances. We've made complaining a form of entertainment, a way to connect with others, a daily ritual. But complaining is one of the most destructive habits you can have. When you complain, you're focusing on what's wrong instead of what's right. You're putting your attention on problems instead of solutions. You're training your brain to look for the negative in every situation. What you focus on expands. When you spend your time complaining, you're actually creating more things to complain about. You're programming your mind to see problems everywhere. You're lowering your vibration and attracting more negativity into your life. Now, I'm not saying you should never acknowledge problems or challenges. I'm not saying you should pretend everything is perfect when it's not. What I'm saying is that there's a difference between acknowledging a problem and complaining about it. When you acknowledge a problem, you're taking the first step towards solving it. When you complain about a problem, you're just wallowing in it. When you acknowledge a challenge, you're empowering yourself to overcome it. When you complain about a challenge, you're making yourself a victim of it. Instead of complaining, try this. For every problem you identify, come up with at least one possible solution. For every challenge you face, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can this make me stronger, wiser, more compassionate? When you stop complaining and start looking for solutions, your entire life changes. You become a problem solver instead of a problem dweller. You become someone who creates positive change instead of someone who just talks about what's wrong. The fourth thing that awakened souls gradually release is the need to control everything and everyone around them. Control is an illusion, but it's an illusion that many of us cling to desperately. We think that if we can just control our circumstances, our relationships, our future, then we'll be safe, we'll be happy, we'll be secure. But the truth is, the only thing you can really control is yourself. You can't control what other people do, what they say, how they react, what they choose. You can't control the weather, the economy, natural disasters, or any of the countless variables that make up life. When you try to control things that are outside your control, you create stress, anxiety, and frustration for yourself. You waste enormous amounts of energy trying to manipulate situations and people instead of focusing on what you actually can influence. The need to control often comes from fear. We're afraid that if we don't control everything, something bad will happen. We're afraid that people will make choices we don't like. We're afraid that life won't unfold the way we think it should. But when you release the need to control, something magical happens. You start to trust. You start to have faith that things will work out, maybe not exactly as you planned, but in the way that's best for everyone involved. You start to see that there's a wisdom in life that's greater than your limited perspective. When you stop trying to control others, your relationships improve dramatically. People feel free to be themselves around you. They don't feel like they have to walk on eggshells or pretend to be someone they're not. They trust you because they know you're not trying to manipulate them or change them. When you stop trying to control circumstances, you become more adaptable, more resilient, more at peace. You learn to flow with life instead of fighting against it. You learn to find opportunity in unexpected situations. You learn to see challenges as chances to grow instead of as problems to solve. The fifth thing that spiritually aware people slowly quit is living in the past or the future instead of the present moment. Most of us spend very little time actually living in the now. We're either rehashing the past worrying about things that have already happened, feeling guilty about mistakes we made, or we're projecting into the future, worrying about things that might happen, planning for scenarios that may never come to pass. But life is happening right now. This moment is the only moment you actually have. The past is gone. You can't change it. The future hasn't happened yet. You can't control it. All you have is right now. And right now is where your power is. When you're constantly thinking about the past, you're missing out on the present. When you're always worried about the future, you're not fully experiencing what's happening now. You're living in your head instead of living your life. The present moment is where joy is found. It's where peace exists. It's where love lives. When you're fully present, you notice things you've been missing. You taste your food more fully. You hear music more clearly. You see beauty that was always there, but that you were too distracted to notice. Being present also means you're more effective in whatever you're doing. When your mind is scattered between the past and the future, your performance suffers. When you're fully focused on what you're doing right now, you do it better. You make fewer mistakes, you're more creative, you're more efficient. Learning to live in the present moment is a practice. It takes time to develop. You've probably spent years, maybe decades, living in your head, so it's going to take some effort to break that pattern. But every moment you spend fully present is a moment well lived. Start small. When you're eating, really taste your food. When you're walking, feel your feet on the ground. When someone's talking to you, really listen to their words instead of thinking about what you're going to say next. When you're in nature, take in the sights, sounds, and smells around you. The sixth thing that people on the spiritual path gradually let go of is the habit of judging others. Judgment is one of the most common and destructive habits we have. We judge people based on their appearance, their choices, their beliefs, their lifestyle. We create entire stories about people based on tiny pieces of information. But when you judge others, you're really revealing more about yourself than about them. Your judgments are based on your own experiences, your own fears, your own insecurities. They're not objective truths about the people you're judging. Judgment also separates you from others. When you judge someone, you're putting them in a category. You're making them different from you. You're creating distance between you and them. But the truth is, we're all much more alike than we are different. We all want to be loved. We all want to be understood. We all want to be valued. Everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. Everyone has a story that has shaped who they are. Everyone has fears, hopes, dreams, and struggles. When you judge someone, you're ignoring their humanity. You're reducing them to a single characteristic or action. Instead of judging others, try to understand them. Try to see them with compassion. Try to remember that they're doing the best they can with what they have. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone or approve of everyone's choices. It just means you can see them as fellow human beings who are trying to figure out life just like you are. But when you stop judging others, you also stop judging yourself as harshly. The same voice that judges others is the voice that judges you. When you develop compassion for others, you develop compassion for yourself. When you see others with understanding, you see yourself with understanding. The seventh and final thing that spiritually awakened people slowly release is the belief that they are victims of their circumstances. This might be the most important one of all. As long as you see yourself as a victim, you're powerless. As long as you believe that your happiness, your success, your peace depends on external circumstances, you're at the mercy of a world you can't control. The victim mentality says, I can't be happy because of what happened to me. I can't succeed because of my background. I can't change because of my circumstances. But this is giving away all your power to external things and other people. Now, I'm not minimizing the real challenges and traumas that people face. I'm not saying that everyone has the same opportunities or that life is fair. What I'm saying is that regardless of what has happened to you, regardless of your current circumstances, you still have the power to choose your response. You can't always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond to what happens to you. You can choose your attitude, you can choose your perspective, you can choose your actions. You can choose whether to focus on what you've lost or what you still have. You can choose whether to see obstacles as roadblocks or as stepping stones. When you release the victim mentality, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you and start rescuing yourself. You stop blaming others for your problems and start taking responsibility for your solutions. You stop looking outside yourself for happiness and start creating it from within. This doesn't happen overnight. If you've been thinking of yourself as a victim for years, it's going to take time to change that pattern. But every time you choose to take responsibility instead of blame, every time you choose to look for solutions instead of dwelling on problems, every time you choose to see opportunities instead of obstacles, you're moving away from victimhood and toward empowerment. The beautiful thing about releasing these 7 things is that you don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to eliminate them from your life completely before you start seeing benefits. Every small step you take, every moment of awareness, every conscious choice to let go of what doesn't serve you moves you closer to the person you're meant to be. You might find that you make progress in one area and then slip back into old patterns. That's okay, that's normal. That's part of the process. The key is to be gentle with yourself, to be patient with yourself, to remember that change takes time. Some days you'll remember to stay present, and other days you'll find yourself lost in worry about the future. Some days you'll choose peace over being right, and other days you'll get caught up in an argument. Some days you'll take responsibility for your life, and other days you'll slip into victim thinking. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is awareness. The goal is to catch yourself more quickly when you fall into these old patterns and to choose differently. As you begin to release these 7 things, you'll notice changes in your life that might surprise you. Your relationships will improve because you're no longer trying to control or judge the people around you. Your stress levels will decrease because you're no longer fighting reality or trying to be right all the time. Your happiness will increase because you're no longer depending on external approval or circumstances for your peace. You'll also find that you have more energy. These 7 habits are incredibly draining. When you're constantly trying to control everything, judge everyone, complain about everything, prove you're right, seek approval, live in the past or future, and see yourself as a victim, you're using up enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy. When you release these habits, you free up that energy for things that actually matter. You can use it to create, to love, to grow, to contribute. You can use it to pursue your dreams, to build meaningful relationships, to make a positive difference in the world. You'll also find that you become more attractive to other people. Not necessarily in a physical sense, although that might happen too, but in an energetic sense. People are naturally drawn to those who are at peace with themselves, who don't need to prove anything, who don't judge others, who take responsibility for their own lives. When you embody these qualities, you become a source of inspiration for others. You show them what's possible. You give them permission to let go of their own limiting patterns. You become a light in a world that often seems dark. The path of spiritual awakening isn't always easy. It requires you to look at yourself honestly, to acknowledge patterns that aren't serving you, to make changes that might feel uncomfortable at first. It requires you to let go of familiar ways of thinking and being, even when those ways have become like old friends. But the rewards are beyond measure. When you live from this awakened place, when you've released these 7 things that keep most people stuck, you experience a peace that passes understanding. You experience joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. You experience love that flows freely from your heart to everyone you meet. And you realize that you were never broken to begin with, you were never lacking, you were never less than enough, you were just covered up by layers of conditioning, layers of fear, layers of false beliefs about who you had to be to survive in this world. As you peel away these layers, as you release what doesn't serve you, your true self begins to shine through. And your true self is magnificent. Your true self is wise. Your true self is loving. Your true self is peaceful. Your true self is everything you've been seeking outside yourself. The process of awakening is really a process of remembering who you really are beneath all the roles you play, all the masks you wear, all the strategies you've developed to get through life. You're remembering that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. This remembering changes everything. When you know who you really are, you don't need others to validate you. When you know your true nature, you don't need to control everything around you. When you know your worth, you don't need to prove you're right. When you know your power, you don't see yourself as a victim. The 7 things I've shared with you today are really just symptoms of forgetting who you are. When you remember, when you wake up to your true nature, these things naturally fall away. They lose their grip on you because they no longer serve the person you know yourself to be. Be patient with yourself as you walk this path. Be gentle with yourself as you learn to let go. Remember that every master was once a beginner. Every person who seems to have it all figured out was once where you are now, taking the first steps toward awakening. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're listening to these words, the fact that something inside you is stirring and wanting to change tells me that you're ready. You're ready to release what's been holding you back. You're ready to step into who you're meant to be. You're ready to wake up to the magnificent being you've always been. Trust the process, trust yourself, trust that life is supporting your awakening in ways you might not even be able to see yet, and know that every step you take toward releasing these 7 things is a step toward the freedom, peace, and joy that are your birthright. Your awakening doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everyone whose life you touch. When you stop judging, you give others permission to be themselves. When you stop trying to control, you allow others to find their own way. When you stop complaining, you inspire others to look for solutions. When you take responsibility for your life, you show others that they can do the same. You become a force for good in this world, not by trying to change everyone else, but by changing yourself. You become a beacon of hope, not by preaching to others, but by living the truth you've awakened to. You become a teacher, not by telling others what to do, but by showing them what's possible. This is the path of the spiritually awakened person. This is the journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, from fear to love, from separation to unity, from victimhood to empowerment. It's the most important journey you'll ever take, and it starts with a single step. Today, right now, in this moment, you can take that step. You can choose to release just one of these 7 things. You can choose to respond differently the next time someone disagrees with you. You can choose to catch yourself the next time you start complaining. You can choose to stay present for just one conversation today. Small steps lead to big changes. Consistent choices create lasting transformation. And every moment offers you a fresh opportunity to choose differently, to be different, to live from the awakened place within you that has been waiting patiently for you to remember who you really are. The time is now. The person is you. The path is before you. All that's required is the willingness to let go of what no longer serves you and to embrace the magnificent being you were born to be. Your awakening is not just possible, it's inevitable. The question is not if, but when, and I believe that when is now. As you continue on this path of awakening, you'll begin to notice something beautiful happening in your daily life. The ordinary moments start to feel extraordinary. A simple conversation with a stranger becomes an opportunity for connection. A sunset that you might have rushed past before now stops you in your tracks with its beauty. The laughter of a child reminds you of the joy that exists in pure presence. This transformation happens because you're no longer filtering everything through the lens of these 7 limiting patterns. You're not constantly evaluating whether someone approves of you so you can actually see them for who they are. You're not trying to control the outcome of every interaction so you can be genuinely curious about what unfolds. You're not judging everyone you meet so you can appreciate their unique gifts and perspectives. When you live this way, you start to see synchronicities everywhere. The right book falls into your hands at exactly the right moment. You run into someone who has exactly the information you need. Opportunities appear that seem almost too perfect to be coincidence. This isn't magic, although it might feel like it. This is what happens when you align with the flow of life instead of fighting against it. Your intuition becomes stronger and clearer. When you're not constantly caught up in mental chatter about what went wrong yesterday or what might go wrong tomorrow, you create space for your inner wisdom to speak. You start to trust that quiet voice inside you that knows things your logical mind hasn't figured out yet. You make decisions that feel right in your gut, even when you can't explain why. Relationships take on a completely different quality. When you're not trying to get anything from other people, when you're not trying to change them or fix them or impress them, you can simply enjoy them for who they are. You become genuinely interested in their stories, their dreams, their challenges. You listen not to respond but to understand. You love not to possess but to appreciate. This shift in how you relate to others creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond your immediate circle. Children feel safer around you because they sense your authenticity. Animals are drawn to your peaceful energy. Even strangers seem more open and friendly when they encounter you. You realize that who you are being affects everyone around you in ways you might never fully understand. Your creativity blossoms in ways you never expected. When you're not spending all your mental energy on worry, control, judgment, and the need to be right, that energy becomes available for creative expression. You might find yourself writing, painting, singing, dancing, or creating in ways you haven't since you were a child. You rediscover the joy of creating something just for the pure pleasure of creating it. Your work life transforms as well. Whether you're in the same job or you find yourself drawn to something completely different, you approach your work from a new perspective. You're not working just to get approval or to prove your worth. You're contributing your gifts to the world. You're serving others through your unique talents and abilities. Work becomes less about what you get and more about what you give. Money takes on a different meaning too. You realize that your security doesn't come from your bank account but from your connection to the infinite abundance of the universe. This doesn't mean you become careless with money or that you don't need to be practical. It means you don't live in fear about money. You trust that when you're living from your authentic self, when you're contributing your gifts to the world, you'll be supported. Your physical health often improves when you release these 7 patterns. Stress is one of the biggest contributors to illness, and these patterns create enormous amounts of stress in your body. When you stop fighting with reality, when you stop needing to control everything, when you stop judging and complaining, your body relaxes. Your immune system strengthens. You sleep better. You have more energy. You might also find that you naturally make healthier choices without forcing yourself. When you're living from your authentic self, you naturally want to treat your body well. You eat foods that nourish you, not to punish yourself or because you should, but because you love yourself enough to care for the vessel that carries you through this life. The relationship you have with yourself becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. When you're not constantly seeking approval from others, you learn to approve of yourself. When you're not judging others, you stop being so harsh with yourself. When you take responsibility for your life instead of seeing yourself as a victim, you empower yourself to create the life you want. Self-care becomes a natural expression of self-love rather than something you have to force yourself to do. You take time for solitude not because you're running away from the world, but because you enjoy your own company. You say no to things that drain your energy, not because you're being selfish, but because you understand that taking care of yourself allows you to show up better for others. Your spiritual practice, whatever form it takes, becomes less about following rules or doing things perfectly and more about connecting with something greater than yourself. Whether you pray, meditate, spend time in nature, or simply sit in silence, these moments become precious opportunities to remember who you really are beneath all the roles and responsibilities. You begin to see the sacred in the ordinary. Washing dishes becomes a meditation on gratitude for having food to eat and dishes to eat from. Waiting in line becomes an opportunity to practice patience and presence. Traffic jams become chances to listen to music you love or to appreciate the engineering marvel of the roads and cars around you. As your perspective shifts, you realize that every experience, even the difficult ones, has been serving your growth in some way. The job you hated taught you what you don't want and pointed you toward what you do want. The relationship that ended painfully taught you about your own patterns and helped you develop compassion. The financial struggles taught you about resourcefulness and gratitude. This doesn't mean you become grateful for suffering or that you believe everything happens for a reason in some predetermined way. It means you develop the ability to find meaning and growth opportunities in whatever life presents to you. You become resilient, not because you're tough, but because you're flexible. You bend with life's storms instead of breaking. Your compassion extends not just to other people, but to all of life. You see the interconnectedness of everything. You understand that harming others ultimately harms yourself, and that healing yourself contributes to the healing of the world. You make choices that consider not just your immediate needs, but the needs of future generations and the planet that supports all life. This expanded awareness brings with it a sense of responsibility, but it's not a heavy burden. It's the joyful responsibility of someone who has found their place in the grand symphony of existence and wants to play their part beautifully. You contribute to the world not because you have to, but because you can't help but overflow with the love and wisdom you cultivated within yourself. The changes that occur as you release these 7 patterns happen gradually, like the slow turning of seasons. One day you realize that you haven't complained about anything in weeks. Another day you notice that you stayed completely present during an entire conversation. Gradually you discover that you're responding to challenges with curiosity instead of resistance, with trust instead of fear. People around you might not understand the changes they see in you. Some might even feel threatened by your peace because it highlights their own inner turmoil. Some might try to pull you back into old patterns of drama, gossip, or negativity. Remember that this is not about them. This is their own fear of change, their own attachment to familiar patterns, even when those patterns cause suffering. Stay true to your path. Be patient with those who don't understand. Love them anyway. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is simply being a living example of what's possible. Your peace becomes their invitation. Your joy becomes their hope. Your authenticity becomes their permission to be real too. The awakening process is not linear. You don't graduate from one level to the next and never look back. There will be days when old patterns resurface. There will be times when you catch yourself complaining, judging, trying to control, or seeking approval. When this happens, don't judge yourself for it. Simply notice it, smile at yourself with compassion, and choose differently. Each time you catch yourself and choose differently, you're strengthening new neural pathways in your brain. You're literally rewiring your consciousness. Every moment of awareness is a victory. Every choice to respond differently is a step toward freedom. Every act of self-compassion is an act of healing, not just for yourself, but for the collective consciousness of humanity. I remember that awakening is not a destination you reach and then you're done. It's an ongoing process of becoming more conscious, more loving, more authentic, more free. It's a lifetime practice of returning again and again to your true self whenever you notice you've wandered away. The 7 things you're releasing were never who you really are. They were learned responses, survival strategies, adaptations to a world that sometimes felt unsafe or unwelcoming. As you let them go, you're not losing anything important. You're uncovering the diamond that was always there beneath the dust. You're remembering the song you came here to sing. You're awakening to the love you came here to be. You know what's incredible? Right now, in this very moment, you have the power to decide that you will never again allow anger to control your life. Not tomorrow, not after you read another book, not after you attend another seminar. Right now. And I want to talk to you about something that changed my life completely, and I know it will change yours too if you really hear what I'm saying to you today. Anger is a choice. Let me say that again because this might be the most important thing you hear today. Anger is a choice. You choose it. Every single time you get angry at someone, you are making a choice. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but you don't understand. You don't know what they did to me. You don't know how they treated me. You don't know what they said. And you're right. I don't know. But what I do know is this. No one can make you angry without your permission. No one. Think about that for a moment. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when someone says something unkind to you, when someone doesn't meet your expectations, what's really happening? They're just being themselves. They're doing what they do. They're living their life according to their level of consciousness, their conditioning, their understanding of the world, and you're getting angry because you've decided that they should be different. You've decided that they should behave according to your rules, your expectations, your way of seeing things. But here's the truth that will set you free. You cannot control other people. You cannot control what they say. You cannot control what they do. You cannot control how they think. The only thing you can control is your response to what they say and do. That's it. That's all you've got. And when you really understand this, when you really get this at a cellular level, your entire life transforms. You see, when you get angry at someone, you're saying to yourself and to the universe, this person has power over me. This person can determine my emotional state. This person can take away my peace. And that's simply not true unless you give them that power. You are giving away your power every time you allow someone else's behavior to determine how you feel. Let me tell you something about anger that most people don't understand. Anger is always about you. It's never about the other person. Never. When you feel angry, you are experiencing a disturbance within yourself. You are experiencing a gap between what you think should be happening and what is actually happening. And that gap, that's where the anger lives. In that space between your expectations and reality. So what do? How do you stop being angry? How do you reach that place where nothing and no one can disturb your inner peace? It starts with understanding that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of your thoughts and emotions. You are the one who watches the thoughts come and go. You are the one who notices the emotions rise and fall. And when you identify with that observer, with that witness consciousness, suddenly you have space, you have room, you have the ability to choose. When someone does something that in the past would have made you angry, you can now pause. You can observe the anger trying to arise. You can watch it like you're watching a movie. And then you can ask yourself, is this serving me? Is this anger helping me in any way? Is it making me healthier? Is it making me happier? Is it solving the problem? And the answer is always no. Anger never solves anything. It only creates more problems. It damages your relationships. It damages your health. It damages your peace of mind. Now, I want you to understand something crucial. When I say anger is a choice, I'm not saying you should suppress your feelings. I'm not saying you should pretend everything is fine when it's not. I'm not saying you should be a doormat and let people walk all over you. That's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is responding to life from a place of centeredness rather than reacting from a place of disturbance. There's a huge difference between responding and reacting. When you react, you're not thinking. You're just being triggered. Something happens and boom, you're angry. It's automatic. It's unconscious. It's like a button that gets pushed and you have no control. But when you respond, you're conscious. You're aware. You're choosing. You're saying, okay, this situation is happening. How do I want to handle this? What response will serve the highest good here? And here's something beautiful that happens when you stop being angry at people. You start to see them differently. You start to see that everyone is doing the best they can with the consciousness they have. That person who cut you off in traffic, they might be rushing to the hospital. They might have just received terrible news, or maybe they're just having a bad day, or maybe they're just not very conscious yet. But whatever it is, it's not personal. It's not about you. This is so important. Nothing other people do is because of you. It's because of them. When someone is rude to you, it's because they're in pain. When someone betrays you, it's because they're disconnected from their higher self. When someone criticizes you, it's because they're critical of themselves. People who are at peace don't hurt other people. People who are happy don't try to make others unhappy. So when someone does something hurtful, instead of getting angry, you can feel compassion. You can understand that they're suffering. Now, does this mean you have to keep toxic people in your life? Absolutely not. You can remove yourself from unhealthy situations without anger. You can set boundaries without hostility. You can say no without resentment. You can walk away from people who are not good for you while still wishing them well. That's the key. You can make powerful decisions about who you allow in your life without carrying anger in your heart. Let me share something with you about the physiology of anger. When you get angry, your body goes into stress mode. Your heart rate increases. Your blood pressure rises. Stress hormones flood your system. Your immune system is suppressed. And all of this happens not because of what the other person did, but because of your reaction to what they did. You are literally poisoning yourself with your own anger. And the person you're angry at, they're probably not even thinking about you. They've moved on. They're living their life. And you're sitting there stewing in your anger, hurting yourself. So who's really being hurt by your anger? You are. Always. Every single time. Anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't work that way. You're the one who suffers. You're the one who can't sleep at night. You're the one replaying the situation over and over in your mind. You're the one whose health is being compromised. And for what? Because someone didn't behave the way you wanted them to? Here's another powerful realization. When you're angry at someone, you're tied to them. You're connected to them. You're giving them space in your mind, rent-free. They're living in your head, occupying your thoughts, stealing your peace. And the moment you let go of that anger, you cut that cord. You free yourself. You take back your power. You reclaim your peace. Forgiveness is the key, not for them, but for you. Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was okay. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again. It doesn't mean you have to have them in your life. Forgiveness simply means you're no longer willing to carry the burden of anger and resentment. You're choosing your peace over your need to be right. You're choosing your freedom over your desire for revenge. And when you forgive, something miraculous happens. You feel lighter. You feel freer. It's like you've been carrying a heavy backpack full of rocks, and suddenly you just take it off and set it down. The relief is immediate, the peace is palpable, and you realize that you could have done this at any time. You didn't need the other person to apologize. You didn't need them to change. You didn't need anything from them at all. You just needed to make a different choice. Now, let's talk about expectations, because this is where so much anger comes from. You have an idea of how people should be, how they should treat you, how they should behave. And when they don't meet those expectations, you get angry. But who says your expectations are right? Who made you the arbiter of how everyone should behave? You have your rules, your standards, your beliefs about how things should be, and you're imposing them on everyone else. And then you're getting upset when people don't follow your rules. But here's the thing, everyone has their own rules. Everyone has their own way of seeing the world. Everyone has their own level of awareness. And they're all equally valid. Your way is not the only way. Your truth is not the only truth. When you can accept this, when you can allow people to be who they are without needing them to be who you want them to be, you become free. This doesn't mean you don't have standards. This doesn't mean you accept bad behavior. What it means is that you stop expecting people to be different than they are. You see them clearly. You accept the reality of who they are, and then you make conscious choices about how you want to interact with them based on that reality, not based on who you wish they were. There's tremendous freedom in accepting people as they are. It doesn't mean you like everything they do. It doesn't mean you agree with their choices. It simply means you acknowledge reality. You stop fighting what is. You stop resisting. And in that acceptance, you find peace. Let me tell you about the energy of anger. When you're angry, you're vibrating at a very low frequency. You're in a state of resistance. You're in a state of separation. And from that place, you cannot access your higher wisdom. You cannot see solutions. You cannot feel love. You cannot experience joy. Anger blocks all of that. It puts you in a prison of your own making. But when you let go of anger, when you choose peace, your energy shifts. You start vibrating at a higher frequency. You become aligned with your true nature, which is love. And from that place, everything changes. Your relationships improve, your health improves, your creativity flows, opportunities appear. Life becomes easier, not because circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. You see, the world you experience is a reflection of your inner state. When you're angry, you see an angry world. You see threats everywhere. You see people as adversaries. You're defensive. You're guarded. You're ready for battle. But when you're at peace, you see a peaceful world. You see beauty. You see kindness. You see opportunities for connection. You're open. You're trusting. You're relaxed. So which world do you want to live in? Because you get to choose. Every moment of every day, you get to choose. Are you going to react with anger, or are you going to respond with peace? Are you going to see this person as an enemy, or are you going to see them as a fellow human being who is struggling just like everyone else? Here's something I want you to try. The next time someone does something that would normally make you angry, take a breath. Just breathe. And then ask yourself, What if this person is a teacher? What if this situation is here to help me grow? What if this is an opportunity to practice peace? Because that's what it is. Every challenging person, every difficult situation is an opportunity for you to strengthen your peace muscle. It's a chance for you to prove to yourself that you don't have to be controlled by external circumstances. And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. It's like building any other skill. At first, it's hard. You'll slip up, you'll get angry, and that's okay. Don't judge yourself, don't beat yourself up. Just notice it. Oh, I got angry. Interesting. What triggered that? And then choose again. Choose peace. Choose understanding. Choose love. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself when you feel anger arising is this: do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Because often, anger is about wanting to be right. Someone did something wrong, and you want them to know it. You want them to admit it. You want them to apologize. You want justice. But at what cost? At the cost of your peace? At the cost of your happiness? Is it worth it? Most of the time, being right is not worth sacrificing your happiness. Most of the time, your peace is more valuable than proving a point. Most of the time, letting it go is the strongest thing you can do. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to choose what really matters. And what really matters? Your inner state, your peace, your joy, your ability to love. These are the things that matter. These are the things that make life worth living. Not being right, not winning arguments, not getting revenge, not holding grudges. Those things only make you miserable. Let's talk about judgment, because judgment and anger go hand in hand. When you judge someone as wrong, as bad, as stupid, as selfish, you create the conditions for anger. You set yourself up as superior, and you put them down as inferior. And from that place of judgment, anger is inevitable. But what if you stopped judging? What if you simply observed? What if you said, this person is behaving this way. This is what's happening. How do I want to respond? No judgment, no labels, just what is. When you do this, anger loses its grip on you. Because anger needs judgment to survive. It needs the story that someone is wrong and you are right. The truth is, everyone is doing the best they can with the consciousness they have in that moment. Even the person who hurt you, even the person who betrayed you, even the person who disappointed you, they were doing the best they could. Now, their best might not be good enough for you. Their best might have caused you pain, but it was still their best in that moment with their level of awareness. Understanding this doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior. It doesn't mean you don't protect yourself. It doesn't mean you don't have consequences. What it means is that you don't carry anger. You don't make yourself sick with resentment. You handle what needs to be handled, and then you move on. You let it go. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is not pretending it didn't happen. Letting go is simply releasing your emotional attachment to it. It's saying, this happened. I acknowledge it. I learned from it. And now I'm choosing to move forward without carrying this weight. Here's a powerful practice. When someone does something that triggers you, instead of immediately reacting, say to yourself, this is not an emergency. I have time to choose my response. Because most of the time, our anger is based on the false belief that we must react immediately. But you don't. You can pause, you can breathe, you can think, and from that pause, from that space, you can choose a response that serves you. Another thing to understand about anger is that it often comes from pain. When someone hurts you, your first instinct might be to lash out in anger. But underneath that anger is hurt. There's pain. There's disappointment, there's sadness. And instead of feeling those vulnerable emotions, we cover them up with anger because anger feels more powerful. Anger feels like protection, but it's not, it's just a mask. What if, instead of getting angry, you allowed yourself to feel the hurt? What if you acknowledged the pain? What if you were honest about your disappointment? This is vulnerability, and it's much more powerful than anger. When you can say, what you did hurt me, instead of, I'm so angry at you, you're being authentic. You're being real. And from that place of authenticity, real communication can happen. Real healing can happen. But when you come from anger, defenses go up, walls go up, nothing gets resolved. The other person gets defensive and you get more angry and it just escalates. But when you come from a place of honest vulnerability, people can actually hear you. They can actually understand. And even if they don't, even if they're not capable of that, you've honored yourself. You've been true to yourself. and that's what matters most. Now, I want to address something important. Some people use anger as fuel. They think it motivates them. They think it gives them energy. They think it helps them stand up for themselves. And while anger can provide a temporary surge of energy, it's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And it always comes at a cost. You can be motivated by love instead of anger. You can stand up for yourself from a place of self-respect instead of rage. You can create change from a place of vision instead of vengeance. And when you do, your actions are more effective. Your energy is cleaner. Your impact is greater. Think about the great leaders throughout history, the ones who created lasting change, the ones who really transformed the world. They didn't do it through anger. They did it through love. They did it through vision. They did it through a commitment to something greater than themselves. Yes, they felt angry about injustice, but they didn't act from anger. They acted from love. They acted from a vision of a better world. You can do the same in your own life. You can want things to be better without being angry about how they are. You can work for change without carrying resentment. You can hold people accountable without hating them. These things are not only possible, they're more effective. Let me share something about the present moment. Anger almost always lives in the past or the future. You're angry about something that already happened, or you're angry about something you're afraid will happen. But in this present moment, right now, are you okay? Right now, in this exact second, is there a problem? Usually not. Usually, in the present moment, you're fine. You're breathing, you're alive, you're okay. So when you feel anger rising, come back to now. Come back to this moment. Feel your breath. Feel your body. Look around you. Be here now. And notice how, in this moment, there's nothing to be angry about. The anger is about something that's not happening right now. And if you can stay in the present moment, anger has no power over you. This is why meditation is so powerful. It trains you to be present. It trains you to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you find freedom, you find choice, you find peace. But you don't have to sit on a cushion to be present. You can be present right now. You can be present while you're driving, while you're working, while you're talking to someone. You can bring your attention to this moment again and again. And each time you do, you're strengthening your ability to choose peace over anger. Here's another insight. Your anger often has nothing to do with the person you're directing it at. You might be angry at your spouse, but really you're angry at yourself. You might be angry at your boss, but really you're angry at your own choices. You might be angry at the world, but really you're angry about your own unfulfilled potential. This is called projection. You take what you don't want to face in yourself and you project it onto others. You make them the problem so you don't have to look at your own stuff. But this never works. It never brings relief. It never brings resolution. The only way to heal is to look inward, to take responsibility, to ask yourself, what is this anger really about? What is this showing me about myself? When you start asking these questions, when you start looking within, you stop blaming. You stop being a victim. You stop giving your power away. You realize that you are the creator of your experience, not because you control what happens to you, but because you control how you respond to what happens to you. And this is the ultimate freedom. This is the key to never being angry again. Understanding that you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of other people. You are not at the mercy of your past. You are a powerful creator, and you get to choose in every moment how you want to show up. So what if you chose to show up with love? What if you chose to show up with compassion? What if you chose to show up with understanding? What if, instead of asking, why is this happening to me, you asked, what can I learn from this? What if, instead of seeing enemies, you saw teachers? What if, instead of seeing problems, you saw opportunities? This is not naive positivity. This is not pretending bad things don't happen. This is not toxic optimism. This is a conscious choice to interpret your experiences in a way that empowers you rather than victimizes you. It's a choice to see life as happening for you, not to you. When someone treats you badly, life is giving you an opportunity to practice unconditional love. When someone disappoints you, life is giving you an opportunity to release expectations. When someone angers you, life is giving you an opportunity to choose peace. Every difficult person, every challenging situation is a gift. It's a chance to grow. It's a chance to evolve. It's a chance to become more of who you really are. And who are you really? You are not your anger. You are not your resentment. You are not your hurt. You are the infinite loving awareness that is witnessing all of this. You are the consciousness that is aware of the anger, aware of the hurt, aware of the thoughts, and that consciousness is always at peace. It's always whole. It's always complete. When you identify with that awareness instead of with your temporary emotions, everything shifts. You realize you can feel angry without being angry. You can observe the emotion without becoming the emotion. You can watch it rise, watch it peak, watch it fall, all while remaining centered in your true self. This is mastery. This is freedom. This is what it means to never be angry at anyone again. Not because nothing ever bothers you, but because you're no longer controlled by what bothers you. You're no longer imprisoned by your reactions. You're free. And from that freedom, you can love. You can really love. Not the conditional love that says, I'll love you if you behave the way I want, but the unconditional love that says, I love you even when you don't. Not because you're perfect, but because love is your nature. Not because people deserve it, but because you deserve to be a loving person. This kind of love transforms everything. It transforms your relationships. It transforms your health. It transforms your entire experience of life, because when you're loving, you're happy. When you're angry, you're miserable. It's that simple. So I'm inviting you today to make a decision. Decide that you're done with anger. Decide that you're done giving your power away. Decide that you're done poisoning yourself with resentment. Decide that from this moment forward, you're choosing peace, you're choosing love, you're choosing freedom. And when someone does something that in the past would have made you angry, remember this: they are not your enemy, they are your teacher. This is not a problem, this is an opportunity. You are not a victim, you are a powerful creator, and you get to choose. Choose peace, choose understanding, choose compassion, choose love. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. Not because you're naive, but because you're wise. This is the path. This is the way. This is how you never be angry at anyone again, not by suppressing your emotions, but by transforming them. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by actually being fine regardless of circumstances. Not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. You have this power. You've always had this power. You just forgot. But now you remember, now you know, and now you can choose. Every moment of every day, you can choose. And when you choose peace often enough, it becomes your default. It becomes who you are. It becomes your natural state. And from that place of peace, you can do anything. You can create anything. You can be anything. Because you're no longer wasting your energy on anger. You're no longer carrying the burden of resentment. You're free. You're light. You're alive. This is your birthright. This is your true nature. This is who you really are beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the hurt, beneath all the stories. You are peace. You are love. You are joy. And nothing anyone does can take that away from you unless you let them. So don't let them. Reclaim your power. Reclaim your peace. Reclaim your life. Starting right now. Starting with the very next person who does something that would normally make you angry. See them with new eyes. See them with compassion. See them as a fellow human being on their own journey. And choose to respond with love. This is how you change the world. Not by trying to change everyone else, but by changing yourself. Not by making everyone behave the way you want them to, but by being at peace regardless of how they behave. Not by controlling circumstances, but by controlling your response to circumstances. You are more powerful than you know. You are more free than you realize. You are more capable of love than you can possibly understand. And it all starts with this decision: to never again allow anger to steal your peace. To never again give your power away to someone else's behavior. To never again be a prisoner of your own reactivity. You are free. You've always been free. You just had to remember, and now you have. So go forth. Live from this place of freedom. Love from this place of peace. Be the person you were always meant to be. The person who is no longer controlled by anger. The person who responds to everything with love. The person who is truly free. This is possible for you. Not someday, not eventually, right now. In this moment, make the choice, make the commitment, and watch your entire life transform. Because when you're no longer angry, you're available for joy. When you're no longer resentful, you're available for love. When you're no longer bitter, you're available for peace. And that's what life is really about. Not being right, not winning, not getting revenge, but being at peace, being in love, being in joy. That's success. That's happiness. That's freedom. Choose it, claim it, live it. Starting now. There's something else I want you to consider. Every time you hold on to anger, you're actually creating a story. You're creating a narrative about what happened, about who was wrong, about who was right, about how you were victimized. And you tell yourself this story over and over again. You rehearse it, you perfect it, you add details. And the more you tell the story, the more real it becomes, the more justified your anger feels. But what if you change the story? What if you told a different story about the same event? Because the event itself is neutral. It's just something that happened. The meaning you give it, that's what creates your emotional response. So if you can change the meaning, you can change the emotion. Let's say someone betrayed your trust. You can tell yourself the story that they're a terrible person, that you were foolish to trust them, that you'll never trust anyone again. And that story will make you angry and bitter. Or you can tell yourself a different story. You can say that this person taught you something valuable about boundaries, that this experience helped you become more discerning, that this was a necessary part of your growth. Same event, different story, different emotion. This is the power you have, the power to choose the story you tell yourself about your experiences. And when you exercise this power consciously, you become unstoppable, because nothing can knock you down. Nothing can keep you stuck. Everything becomes useful. Everything becomes a teaching. Think about the energy you spend maintaining your anger. Think about all the mental conversations you have with people who aren't even there, all the arguments you win in your head, all the things you wish you had said, all the ways you replay the situation, trying to make sense of it, trying to justify your position. This is exhausting. This drains your life force. This keeps you stuck in the past. What if you took all that energy and redirected it? What if you used it to create something beautiful? What if you used it to love someone? What if you used it to pursue your dreams? Think about how much energy would be available to you if you weren't spending it on anger and resentment. Think about what you could accomplish. Think about who you could become. Your life is happening right now, not in the past, not in the future, right now. And every moment you spend angry about something that already happened is a moment you're not fully alive. It's a moment you're missing. It's a moment you can never get back. Is that how you want to spend your precious life? Rehashing old grievances, nursing old wounds, staying mad at people who have moved on? You deserve better than that. You deserve to be fully present for your life. You deserve to experience joy. You deserve to feel peace. And the only thing standing between you and that peace is your decision to hold on to anger. That's it. It's just a decision. And you can make a different decision right now. Let me tell you about the ripple effect of your anger. When you're angry, it doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. Your spouse feels it, your children feel it, your coworkers feel it, even strangers feel it. Because energy is contagious. Your state affects other people's states. When you're angry, you spread that anger. You contaminate the space around you. But the beautiful thing is, peace is also contagious. When you're at peace, you spread that peace. When you're loving, you spread that love. When you're joyful, you spread that joy. So by choosing peace for yourself, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping everyone you come into contact with. You're making the world a little bit better. You're being the change. And isn't that what we all really want? To make a positive difference? To leave things better than we found them? You can't do that from a place of anger. You can only do that from a place of love. So every time you choose peace over anger, you're not just choosing for yourself, you're choosing for everyone. Here's something profound. The people who trigger your anger the most are often your greatest spiritual teachers. They're showing you where you're not free. They're showing you where you still have attachments. They're showing you where you still need to grow. Instead of cursing them, thank them. They're doing you a service. They're holding up a mirror and showing you parts of yourself that need healing. When you can get to the place where you actually feel grateful for the difficult people in your life, you know you've made it. You know you're free, because you understand that they're not your problem, they're your opportunity. They're not your curse, they're your blessing in disguise. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what about righteous anger? What about getting angry about injustice? Shouldn't I be angry about wrong things happening in the world? And I understand that question, but here's what I know. You can care about injustice without being angry. You can work to change things without carrying rage. You can stand up for what's right without being consumed by what's wrong. In fact, you're more effective when you come from a place of love rather than anger, because anger clouds your judgment. It makes you reactive. It makes you do things you later regret. But when you come from a place of centered peace, you're clear, you're strategic, you're effective. You create lasting change, not just temporary relief for your own emotions. The world needs people who care, who are compassionate, who want to make things better. But it doesn't need more anger. There's already plenty of that. What the world needs is people who can remain at peace while working for change. People who can love even those they disagree with. People who can see the humanity in everyone, even those who are causing harm. This doesn't mean you're passive. This doesn't mean you don't take action. This means you take action from a place of wisdom rather than reactivity. You respond to the world's problems with solutions, not just more problems. You add light instead of more darkness. Let's talk about forgiveness one more time, because it's so central to this. When you forgive someone, you're not saying what they did was okay. You're saying you're okay. You're saying you're no longer going to let what they did determine your emotional state. You're taking back your power. You're setting yourself free. And sometimes the person you need to forgive most is yourself. You need to forgive yourself for all the times you reacted in anger, for all the times you said things you didn't mean, for all the times you hurt people because you were hurt, for all the times you weren't your best self. Forgive yourself. You were doing the best you could with the awareness you had, and now you have more awareness. Now you can do better. Self-forgiveness is liberation. It allows you to move forward without the weight of guilt and shame. It allows you to learn from your mistakes without being defined by them. It allows you to be human without being harsh with yourself. And when you can forgive yourself, it becomes so much easier to forgive others. Here's a practice that can change everything. Before you go to sleep each night, think about your day. Think about any moments where you felt angry or upset. And then in your mind, replay those moments differently. See yourself responding with peace instead of anger. See yourself choosing love instead of resentment. See yourself being the person you want to be. This does two things. First, it rewires your brain. It creates new neural pathways. It teaches your mind that there are other ways to respond. Second, it releases the charge from those events. It completes them. It allows you to go to sleep in peace instead of carrying the stress into your dreams. And then, when similar situations arise in the future, you'll find yourself automatically responding differently because you've already practiced it. You've already seen yourself doing it. You've already experienced what it feels like to choose peace. And what you practice in your mind becomes easier to do in reality. Your mind is incredibly powerful. It doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. So use that to your advantage. Practice being peaceful. Practice being loving. Practice being free from anger. And watch as your actual life starts to reflect your practice. There's also something important about the language you use, both with yourself and with others. When someone does something you don't like, instead of saying, "You made me angry," try saying, "I feel angry." Do you see the difference? One makes them responsible for your emotion. The other acknowledges that you're responsible for your emotion. This small shift in language creates a huge shift in consciousness, or even better, go deeper. Instead of "I feel angry," ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What's underneath this anger? Because anger is usually a secondary emotion. Underneath it, there's often hurt, fear, disappointment, or sadness. When you can identify and express the real emotion, you connect with people on a much more authentic level. And when you take responsibility for your emotions through your language, something interesting happens. Other people stop being so defensive. They can actually hear you. They can actually respond to what you're really saying, and real communication becomes possible. Remember, every interaction you have is an opportunity to practice. Every person you meet is a chance to choose love over fear. Every challenge is an invitation to respond from your highest self. You don't have to wait for the perfect conditions. You don't have to wait until everyone treats you right. You can start right now with the very next person you interact with. And yes, you'll slip up sometimes. You'll get triggered. You'll react instead of respond. That's okay. That's part of being human. The key is not to beat yourself up about it. Just notice it, learn from it, and choose again. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose. Every breath is a chance to start fresh. This journey from anger to peace is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about becoming more conscious. It's about growing. It's about evolving into the highest version of yourself. And that happens one choice at a time, one moment at a time, one breath at a time. You have everything you need within you right now. You don't need to read another book. You don't need to attend another workshop. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need to decide. Decide that you're done with anger. Decide that you're choosing peace. Decide that you're taking back your power. And then live from that decision. The life you want, the peace you seek, the joy you desire, it's all available to you right now. Not when circumstances change, not when people treat you better, not when you finally get what you want, right now. Because peace is not dependent on external conditions. Peace is an inner state that you choose regardless of external conditions. This is the secret. This is what changes everything. Understanding that happiness doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from wanting what you have. It comes from being at peace with what is. It comes from accepting reality as it is while working to make it better. It comes from loving people as they are while encouraging them to grow. You are standing at a doorway. On one side is the old way of being, where you give your power away to anyone who triggers you, where you stay stuck in anger and resentment, where you blame others for your emotional state. On the other side is freedom, peace, joy, love, power. All you have to do is walk through the doorway. All you have to do is choose. What will you choose?